not good. Well, hello, I'm Jerry McKee, and welcome to Prime Time. We have got a great show for you today, and you're going to be able to also call in and at 864-441-9382, and you'll be able to talk to Hank Parker, a professional bass fisherman, but he's beyond that there too. I mean, he does hunting and everything like that. He's got the best job in the world. And they always told me that if you got a job that's that you love, you never work a day in your life.
Like that.
So I want to well, I'm too old to learn about fishing now. Well, maybe I'm getting ready to retire, Hank. Maybe I'll do that too. Let me switch over to you now, Hank. I got to ask you, when you was growing up as a child, did you always love fishing? What was it about it that attracted you to go and want to fish?
The outdoors was everything. I love to squirrel hunt. I love to go to the pond. Something just about fishing. I didn't start out as a bass fisherman. I started out watching a bobber and putting a cricket or a red worm on a hook and watching a bobber and catching whatever bit. And I didn't really care if it was a brim or a catfish or a bass or whatever it was. Just to watch that bobber go under, what a thrill. And I never got over that. So I've always got excited when I get to go fishing, still love it today. I still like watching a bobber.
Yeah, I remember the bobbers, because when I was growing up too, we did some fishing. I was in Boy Scouts, and that just sit that bob and watch it, and we just stare at it. And see, I guess the reason I guess didn't get into too much fish, I don't have patience.
uh,
Now, do you gotta have patience, right?
well, it pays to have a little patience. But now bass fishing's pretty fast paced. You don't have to be too patient. A lot of mechanics involved. You can go at it really, really hard, and you don't have time to run out of patience. You're busy.
Yeah. Which fish is far as bass, brim, like is the fighter fish?
Well, I just got back last week from New York, uh, which the northern part of America has got incredible smallmouth fishing, starting at Lake St. Clair in Detroit, all the way up to Traverse City, Michigan, and then the Thousand Islands in New York, St. Lawrence Seaway. I just love all that. I go every year, and I'll either go to Michigan or New York and fish for big smallmouth. So out of all the bass family, the smallmouth, and of course we got them in the Broad River here, not as prolific as they were 5 years ago, but we still got a pretty decent population of smallmouth in the Broad River.
Does now and going back to growing up, did uh, did you ever play any hooky go fishing
I
for
just
school?
didn't go. I started homeschool. I stayed home while everybody else went to school.
Oh, so that way you get to go fishing earlier.
That's right. People say high school fishing something new. No, I can go back 40 years ago. I started. I was fishing while everybody else was in high school.
Now, when did you decide that you wanted to go pro fishing?
It was a process. I had that dream. I never shared that dream. Uh, kind of kept it to myself. But I got in a bass club when I was just a kid, the Lincoln County Bassmasters in Lincoln, North Carolina. And some of the older guys took me kind of under the wing, and I learned a lot. They taught me a lot. And then I got to winning too much, and they didn't like me quite as much as they did before. So I ended up getting into Gaston County Bassmasters. Well, Gaston County out of Gastonia, North Carolina, Jerry Ryan, Jim Valentine, Charlie Foster. There were a lot of guys in that club that were fishing on the pro circuit. And so I started competing, and I started winning a lot of tournaments fishing against them. And everybody told me, said, "Man, I'm gonna tell you right now, if you can beat Jerry Ryan, you you can go pro. I'm telling you, he's a great fisherman. If you can beat Charlie Foster uh, on a fairly regular basis, man, you need to go pro." And so I've been wanting to do that. I just didn't have the money to do it. So I borrowed $10,000 on a 90-day note from the Northwestern Bank in Maiden, North Carolina, which is the little town I was raised in, and started fishing.
Yeah, I used to work in Maiden a little bit.
Okay, well, that was my
Uh,
hometown, Maiden, North Carolina. And,
Hickory was my hometown there, so it was kind of close together.
okay, yeah, 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 yeah. I was Hickory, just a little bit away. I worked in Newton, North Carolina, and I
Yeah.
delivered a lot of stuff in Hickory.
Yeah, the Bill Dance. I think his cameraman got sick or something happened there, and that's years ago when you had to carry all the batteries around you,
Oh
and
yeah,
the
oh yeah,
big dinosaur.
oh man.
And I did kind of videoed some one of his shows one time.
Oh, how about that?
But
Vance is the bird. I talk to him on a pretty regular basis. He and I are great friends.
yeah, well, I love seeing some of his outtakes and some of his.
He makes a blooper. He is a blooper. He's a walking blooper. That's the hardest thing to edit because there's a lot of them.
Now, we talked about you telling your dad about how you want to go pro, but you said the worst part was telling your father-in-law.
Oh man, you marrying a guy's daughter and then you're gonna go tell him you're gonna go bass fishing for a living. That didn't go over real good. That was about like a lead balloon.
Well, see, my thought, if you said to me, I thought he's going to have to catch a lot of fish to sell those fish, like a shrimp boat, you
Yeah,
know.
that's probably what he was thinking. He's thinking, this guy, he ain't got it, man. I can't believe my daughter's going to marry him. It worked out somehow. I don't really know how it worked out, but it worked out.
Yeah, well, it's a passion that you have and that you dreamed of from a child up.
You know, it's a shame that so many people, and I totally understand it and I get it, but they do a job their whole life that they don't really enjoy doing. And man, you spend more time working than you do anything else. And to be stuck in a job that you just really don't enjoy. I get up, man. I look forward to my job. You know, I on my days off, I go fishing. So I just love it.
Well, really, you really when you take a vacation, you're fishing.
Oh yeah, yeah. We're definitely not going anywhere on vacation. We can't go fishing.
Now, does your wife like to fish?
My wife does not fish very often. She does enjoy it. I went through a divorce after being married 23 years and having 5 children, and I remarried 23 years ago. So I've been married for 46 years to two different women. But my wife Martha, who is just precious, and of course my first wife Angie was a nice lady. A lot of things were my fault, but Martha is just God sent. She's very very special, and she didn't hunt or fish when her husband, who was a friend of mine, Buddy King, he got cancer, and I would talk to him while he was going through his treatments, and of course cancer finally took his life, and then Martha and I, we had really never met, but one time I went down to have dinner with Buddy and met Martha once. But anyway, she came to Charlotte with U.S. Airways, and we ended up talking and then going out and eventually getting married. But she fished a little bit with Buddy, but she never had hunted. So I got her into turkey hunting, and she really enjoys it. She is quite the hunter. So we've had a good time together.
Well, I've seen a couple of your bags on those turkeys. There's some big turkeys.
Yeah, she's killed the Grand Slam, which there is a Osceola in Florida and an Eastern here in South Carolina and throughout the Southeast, and then there is a Rio Grande in Texas and a Miriam out west, and she's got them all. So
Wow. Well, you trained her well.
yeah, yeah, she did it all in about 5 weeks' time. You know, we traveled. We started out in Florida, and then we came back up here, and then we went to Texas, and then we went to South Dakota and to Nebraska.
Now, when you're fishing, when you're catching the fish, do you catch and release, or do you keep some, or?
In public waters, I don't ever keep a fish. I don't think it's wrong, and I think sometimes that we put too much pressure on younger kids to catch and release. Catch and release is extremely important, but there's exceptions, and I think when a kid catches a fish, he wants to keep it, I think it's fine. But I never keep fish in public waters. Too much pressure on our waters, way too much pressure. And if you keep the fish, you're eventually going to deplete the resource. And so, it's exactly the opposite in private lakes. Private lakes need harvest, and that is what they're lacking the most is inadequate harvest. So it's good to keep them. So I keep them out of private lakes.
Well, I guess so. A private lake is kind of more secluded and more blocked in, and I guess it would overpopulate.
Exactly. It'd be like taking a pasture and putting a bull and a cow in it, and never taking a calf away. And so you got a 4-acre pasture, and it's doing fine supporting that cow and that bull. But now you got a calf, then another calf, then another calf, then all of a sudden you don't have enough grass to feed that herd. So you got to take them out, and exactly what happens. And bass multiply quick. So you
I
got
didn't
to
even know that.
you got to take them out quick. One female may have 70 or 80 surviving fingerlings,
Hmm.
and so now you're going to multiply it times 80 instead of times 2. So it doesn't take long, and you're way overpopulated in a small lake.
Do uh, how did you your bait? What I'm getting at is what was is it trial by error on your bait, or is it something? Because I know you've done some with swivels and made some and modified some, and to me, it's like I go in there and see a pack and old Zepco 202.
Oh yeah,
And,
fishing can be. That is the coolest thing about fishing. Fishing can be extremely simple, or it can be really, really complex. Bass fishing, and to compete on a professional level, there's a lot of learning that is necessary, and a lot of techniques that are necessary that you got to develop to be able to compete. And a fishing lure, I tell people this all the time, a fishing lure is nothing but a tool to do a job. That's all it is. So when I go to a body of water, I look at the water temperature, I look at the clarity of the water, and I consider whether it's pre-spawn or post-spawn, whether the water's been rising or whether it's been falling. And then based on all that, then I try to find the bait, the shad, the brim, whatever the fish are feeding on. And the best way to do that is let the birds show you where they're at. You go in a cove and there's a bunch of blue heron in there, you can count on there's a lot of bait there. So there's going to be fish there. So fish prefer food and cover in that order. So once you go in there and you determine what they're feeding on, then what kind of cover you got to fish. So you simply ask yourself, now what lure do I have that would fish in this cover? Let's say it's a brush pile, let's say it's stumps or maybe aquatic vegetation, lily pads. What lure do I have that would effectively fish this cover? And what color am I going to choose based on the water color, and based on the wind? How rough is the water? Is it smooth? Is it quiet? Do I need a loud lure? Do I need a quiet? There's all kinds of things that you take into consideration. But at the end of the day, when you pick out a lure, all you're doing is getting a tool. And people make lots of mistakes. It's like if you got a 1/2-inch bolt and you need to take it loose, you need a driver or a 1/2-inch wrench.
uh-huh.
If you got a 1-inch wrench, it's not going to work. If you got a 1/4-inch wrench, it's not going to work. You can put it up there, but it's not going to attach to that bolt or that nut, and it's not going to break it loose. And so you can sit there and flounder around trying to get it loose with a 1/4 or a 1-inch, but you really need a 1/2 inch. So you got to find the right tool to get that nut off of that bolt. Exactly the same way with fishing. You got to find the right lure to be able to fish that structure, make the right presentation based on the water color, the water temperature, and the vegetation or the structure that you're fishing.
So do you put a thermometer in the water to see what the temperature is, or do you kind of?
I did in my younger days. Now I have all that built in. I've got electronic equipment that gives me the water temperature. So,
Oh wow, that made it easy for you.
oh yeah, it's a whole lot easier. Yeah, we got all kinds of electronics now that it is quite a treat. Makes it a lot easier.
Now you talk about the water color. What are you looking for there? Is it like it's? I know when after rain you got mud and the water stirred up. Is that what you're looking for, or is it
I
something?
like off-colored water. It depends. Cold water. I like clear water because fish are real lethargic, and you've got to make a presentation slow and easy and deliberate, and I want them to be able to see it. But in warmer water, when the fish are real aggressive, I don't want them to see it too good because they'll run up there and get a good look at it and realize it's a trick. They'll go back. So I like that off-colored water. It's easier to trick them. So if the water's warm, but if it's cold, and I like clear water. So it's a lot of variations, and it's a lot of stuff to analyze. And some lakes you don't have that option. I grew up in the Carolinas. I grew up mostly in North Carolina, and then I started fishing down at Santee Cooper and fishing Lake Murray and Greenwood and Hartwell and all these different lakes around here. And we all have, or all of these lakes, not we all, they all have uh, muddy water when it rains hard.
Hmm.
And so you go to Lake Powell in Arizona, you can see a dime in 20 foot of water in the muddiest water they got. So you
Wow.
don't always have that option to find off colored water, but in lakes that I did and lakes that I do, I always gravitate in warmer weather. I always gravitate to that off colored water.
Yeah, I know. And was doing some scuba diving in Arkansas, and I guess tread and just see my feet in the water. I mean, it was just crystal clear.
Yeah, it's amazing. Some of those TVA lakes and some of those Arkansas lakes are just, and Missouri, they're so clear.
Did people think fish is dumb, but they not, are they?
A bass will make you think they have a mind to reason. They really don't, but they've got a tremendous instinct. And the more pressure you put on a fish, the more they use those instincts. You are their number one predator. When it comes to a bass, they have some predators, but the angler's the number one predator. So all of their senses and their ability to escape danger is all geared toward the angler. So they get pretty tough to catch. You go to a lake that gets a lot of fishing pressure, man, it's hard to trick them.
Hmm. Now, does any lures does it have a do you put any types of smell on it, or
There are a lot. I worked with a company for years, Berkeley, and they really made a lot of different scented baits, and then they made scent that was cooked into the baits and scent that you can actually add to the bait. A lot of companies have that. I work with a company called Fish Formula out of Tennessee, and they've got the new technology is forward facing sonar where you can see it live. You can see the fish, you can see your bait, you can see the fish come up and get your bait.
wow?
And it's very controversial. It's a lot of it's changing the face of traditional fishing, and so there's a lot going on there. I did a podcast on forward facing sonar that I said we need to make some rules. We need to get it all figured out, and created a lot of fireworks. People are very passionate that use forward facing sonar a lot, and there's people that are very passionate on the other side of the fence that don't like it and don't want it. And so somewhere we got to find some common ground and set some rules. But there is a fish formula. They make this little thing called bait pop, and you put it on your bait, and it adds scent. It also helps magnify that bait for that forward facing sonar, so you see the bait a lot better.
Oh, well, you're talking about the fast. Was it fast forward you said, or
Forward facing.
forward facing?
Yeah, just
Yeah.
right out in front of the boat. And if there's a fish out there, you see him.
See it? Well, that's kind of like NASCAR in a way. They can modify to a certain extent, but they got certain rules that you have to, where you're not going to be less weight or a bigger engine or more horse or certain things they got to do. But I can see this how it can be controversial. I can see that because if you're sitting here to me, I'm looking on the screen. Oh, there's the fish is right here. Well, let me get the net.
Well, but if you learn that technique, a lot of these kids, they're so savvy with with handheld devices. They start out with their cell phones or iPhones and tablets, and a lot of schools, the computer is a big part of the class, and so you become very involved in technical aspect. Whereas you take an old man like me, a computer, nothing about it is natural. I don't. So some of the old, really successful pros are getting outdone when it comes to forward facing sonar because it is a technical piece of equipment, and there's a lot of adjustments, man. You got to get the gain right. You got to get the sensitivity right. You got to get the balance right. You got to figure out whether you're going to use forward facing or landscape mode. And you got to be able to digest that. And then you got to be able to know how to set the sensitivity for the landscape mode versus the forward facing or down image mode. There's just so much to it that old guys like me, we resist it. And these younger kids, it's just second nature to them. And man, they are going out there and winning a lot of tournaments because it is a big advantage.
I can see that, and I can see them coming out. They might already have it out there, underwater drones.
It's
They'll
basically what it is.
be able to search the whole lake or that whole area right in there.
Yeah.
I fly a drone, and I can cover a lot of territory
Oh,
with it.
yeah. It's amazing. It really is amazing. Now, they've outlawed drones in the tournaments because people were flying the drones and looking for muddy water, looking for a creek where water came in, looking for a school of fish, looking for where the birds are, looking for where the bait piles are. They've doing all kinds of, so they've stopped that. They said, okay, no more drones during official practice and during competition. So they're going to have to make a similar ruling on forward-facing sonar, and it's a very tough call. So, people say you can't stop technology, but let me tell you, there is a rubber compound that right now, if it was allowed by the PGA, you could put it in a golf ball and you could strike that golf ball with the same force,
Hmm.
and it would go 30% further. And the PGA says no, it'd obsolete our golf courses. It would just completely crush the history of the sport. What Nicklaus accomplished and Gary Player and Arnold Palmer and all these other great guys, that would be wiped away in no time. So the whole history of the sport of golf would be rearranged overnight if you could strike the ball with the same force and it go 30% further.
Well, I had to take away, some of their records that they,
Oh, yeah.
it's the same thing in baseball, was it?
The same exact thing. You can use that same rubber compound inside of a baseball and strike it with the bat and it'd go 30% further. Major League Baseball says no, no.
What is it they put? Is it underneath their hat? When the pitcher.
Oh, yeah, he put a little tar on there to get a little.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Nolan Ryan was the best at that. Yeah, yeah.
And that's kind of basically what this is in a way. I guess if you use it in a certain in tournament, they got rules for that. That okay, you can use it for so much in this tournament.
Well, right now they have not regulated it. It's wide open, and so everybody that wants to use it can use it. And these kids that are so good at it have got a big advantage over us old men.
Yeah, well, I can really see that because it kind of takes. This is mine because I'm old man too, so it kind of takes away from the sport itself, especially in competition. But I know what they're going to say there. So, well, you can have one too.
Yeah,
You know?
you got a nephew and little Jason Lemons who is quite the fisherman, and you have a nephew. His dad, who is the coach of the Union High School fishing team, and Jason, who does an incredible job with those kids. It's all about learning, and you want those kids to learn the fundamental of fishing. And when you have one aspect of fishing that just totally rearranges and dominates, a kid could come in and say, why do I need to learn the basics? I don't need any of that. I mean, it's like, why should I learn how to spell when I got spell check? Why should I learn this when why should I learn to write cursive when everything now is computerized? Why? So they're not teaching cursive anymore.
Right.
And it's a shame. I think it's a bad mistake. If we had a blackout, if China decided to take our computers away and we had to write letters, everybody's going to be printing. And nobody can write at any speed, and so I think it's a mistake. I think we need to learn the basic fundamentals of reading, writing, and arithmetic. But I think we also need to learn the basic fundamentals of how to read the water, how to use a spinnerbait, how to use a plastic worm, how to use a crankbait, and all the variations, like I told you before, a fishing lure is a tool.
Right.
We need to learn how to use all those tools instead of just saying, nope, I'm putting blinders on like the old mule that's plowing the field. And all I'm going to do is look at one row, and I'm going to fish forward-facing sonar, and you can have all the rest of it. I don't think that's good for our kids. I don't think high school fishing needs to go there. I think we need to learn the basics and the fundamentals of the sport. And if it's all about one particular method and technique, which is all, I agree, it's a dominant method and it's a dominant technique. But I still think there's value in learning the basics. And I think that the high school fishing is very dear to me. It's the future of our sport. And I really appreciate your nephew, Jason Lemons, who works so hard,
Hmm.
dedicates a lot of his time, makes a lot of sacrifices, but it's teaching these kids, it's teaching them a lot of different things. It's teaching them a lot about life. It's teaching them how to read water and how to become a fisherman, but the camaraderie that's involved in the sport. There's a lot of things that go with fishing that's just a lot more than throwing a lure out there and hooking a fish and winding him in.
Now, does one thing that page four won't tell you is what kind of bait you're going to use. Uh, does the bait depend on, again, water temperature? Does it depend on the fish itself? Because to me, a bass is a bass here. You go to another lake, it's still a bass. Uh, how do you determine what type of bait that you use for some of these tournaments? Do you switch out periodically, or?
Absolutely. Here, Lake Murray right now, which is right down the road from where we're sitting, they have a bait fish in there called a blueback heron. And the fish are just going nuts on bluebacks right now. That's the thing that's happening. These bass came off the beds and they moved out in the deeper water, and the bluebacks were spawning, and the fish are just targeting blueback heron, and they're just chomping them. So top water baits, fast moving baits, because those fish are on the move. I just got back, as I said earlier, in New York. They have a bait fish up there called a goby. We don't have gobies here. A goby looks somewhat like a tadpole. It's a fatter with a taper, a lot like a tadpole. But those fish love gobies. And so when I go to New York, I want a bait that has a profile of a goby. If I'm fishing Lake Murray, I want a bait that has the profile of a blueback heron. So it's a lot of variation. There's LY in the northern part of the country. We've even got some LY in Lake Norman now. So you got threadfin shad, you got blueback heron, you got gizzard shad, you've got bluegill, and different types of brim that these bass feed on. And so you determine what they're feeding on, then you pick a bait that somewhat looks like the prey that they're after.
So you really kind of have to do a little bit of investigation when you're going out to a different river or a different state to find out what they're eating.
Well, and some of that, there's advantages of being an older professional, because as you go to Texas and you go to New York and you go to Missouri and you go to the Outer Banks of North Carolina, and all these different variations of water, you learn quickly. Man, what I did in Texas don't work in eastern North Carolina. What I did in New York is not real favorable in Florida. So you learn all those things, but now all facing sonar, all that's out the window.
What is your favorite bait that you like using? And what live bait versus artificial bait?
I never was much of a live bait fisherman. I enjoyed fishing with live bait some, but I never did. Florida, that's a big deal. Fishing with these big old 1 pound shiners, catching 12-pound bass, that's a big deal in Florida, but not so big a deal here. We fish for stripers here with live bait. I'll be going down in 2 weeks and fishing with the boys' farm in Newberry, an orphanage, and those kids are awesome. And so we go to Lake Murray every year. They call it hanging with Hank. I can't even do my fingers like that. Hanging with Hank. And we've made television shows, I guess, for about 12 or 13 years, and we fish with live bait. We'll use blueback heron and catching stripers, and I really enjoy that. And we'll count them down. We catch a lot of these fish 80, 90, 100 feet deep.
Wow.
Yeah, so you use a big lead and you just put that blueback on there and keep him alive and put it down there and let him swim around, Stripers, it's a lot of fun.
Wow. I didn't know you went that deep.
Oh, yeah. Last year we caught them, year before last, we caught them 105 feet deep, which is the deepest I'd ever caught a fish.
My goodness. I always thought they would stay close up to the top.
Yeah, and that's the beauty about those electronics. I can see them, we can see them. You got hooks on your LED screen, and it shows you right where the fish are. So you find your bait pole, and look here, man, look at all those fish down there, 105 feet deep, and you can count you, and you can watch your bait go down. Pretty interesting.
What type of rod do you use mostly?
I'm doing a series right now for Lew's. I work with Lew's. They're out of Columbia, South Carolina, and they have rods and reels, and they're really noted for their reels. But the last 12 or so years, they've really came on strong with their rods. And a fishing rod is just exactly like a golf club. You know, you got a whole set of golf clubs, from a 1 iron to a 9 iron to a sand wedge to a driver to a 3 wood or whatever, and pitching wedge, sand wedge. You got all these different to do different jobs with that golf ball. Same thing with fishing rod. You got all these different rods. You're going to throw a little light crankbait. You need a rod that'll load in the middle. It's very parabolic. If you're going to fish a plastic worm, you need a rod that's not very parabolic, but really stiff, just have a little bit of tip to help you cast. So fishing rods are just as complicated, if not more so, than our golf clubs. So you got to have a whole set to get the job done.
Never knew that. I always thought, I'll go here. Oh, it look pretty.
Yeah.
I can grab it.
You watch most people, and I have fun with this because over the 50-year career that I've had, I've done a lot of in-store promotions. I've worked with Walmart and Kmart back in the old days, and Academy, and all the different sporting good chains. I've worked Bass Pro and Cabela's, and you watch people come in to buy a fishing rod, and it's got a hang tag on it, and they're shaking that rod. You cannot have a clue what that rod does by shaking it. I mean, but everybody does it, and it becomes kind of a joke,
Yeah.
What in the world are you shaking that fishing rod, If you take your rod and push it down on the carpet or push it on the floor, then you can tell pretty much how stiff it is. But shaking that rod, you're not going to tell much about that rod.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, you're right. Cause I seen some of them do it when I went into the store. It seemed like
Almost everybody walks up and shakes that rod. What did that just tell you? Nothing.
well, see, I always thought, go buy a nice rod, and that, if you got back in my days, zip code 202, and I think it went up to a 212 or something like that, and
33 was their big one.
33.
The Chrome Zebco 33. I think everybody in my generation that started out fishing, we all started with the Zebco 33. That was the Cadillac of the spin casting reels, and Zebco still makes great products today.
Yeah. And that's with the lever that would go up front.
Oh yeah, it's spinning reel. Now that's a whole deal. The 33, was just a push button reel. It had a encase the spool, so you didn't ever see the spool. The line came out a little hole on the front. You just pushed a little button and throw it. Oh yeah, that was a ticket. Now we all started with that, and then of course the old Mitchell 300 with the open bell spinning, and that's where you graduated. Then you went into the casting reel. So you started out with a push button reel, then you went to a spinning reel, then you went to the casting reel. That's when you get the bird nest and the overruns, and you got to know how to control that with your thumb.
Oh yeah, so go over to the bank, get tangled up in the trees, and that was my fishing experience.
I've seen people do that. I've never done that.
Yeah,
That's a joke.
have you ever kind of fell out of the boat?
Well, we don't talk too much about that. I'll let Bill dance. He is the claim to fame for falling out of the boat. We made a rule one time. Ray Scott, who was an awesome man who's passed away, he's the founder of Bass. And Bass had a rule. You could not get out of the boat. And during the competition, we'd have 9 hours or 8 hours of competition. And from the time you took off till you came in, you could not get out of the boat. So it was illegal to get out of the boat to get wet or to get a fish or to do anything. So we were at Lake Mead out in Nevada, right out of Las Vegas, and it was 113 degrees. And out of the 250 fishermen, I think about 80 or 85 had some pretty severe dehydration. And I was one of those guys. I had to take IVs, and some of the guys got really, really sick, almost life-threatening. They were so dehydrated because the heat was just so intense. So Ray made a rule that it was illegal to get out of the boat, but it was not illegal to fall out of the boat.
Oh no!
And he said that in such a sarcastic, throwaway manner. He kind of gave us the red light, or the green light, I should say. He gave us the green light to. We got too hot, go ahead and jump in the water. So I fell out of the boat 9 times the second day of that tournament.
And I know everybody's thinking, maybe not everybody, but I was thinking 9 hours. Where do you go to the bathroom?
Well, you just kind of go to the back of the boat and do your thing. Some guys would carry a jug. You know, they thought, well, I don't want to pollute the lake, so they would carry a jug. In California, it's against the rules uh, uh, to relieve yourself in the water, so you have to carry a jug and just use the restroom in the boat. Stick the jug up under the console, and at the end of the day, you clean your jug out and start for tomorrow. But I just kind of relieve myself out of the back of the boat most of the time.
That's a long time. 9 hours.
Yeah. It's a longer time for an old man. When I was young, it wasn't a big deal, you know. You might have to go to the bathroom one time a day, but as you get older, about every hour, you know.
Yeah. I just win, I think.
Yeah, that's the way it is, man.
Now, tell people where they can find your videos, and because they're very interesting, and you learn a lot. And you and your granddaughter co-host a podcast there at your studio in your home.
We do a podcast every Thursday. It's on YouTube and Spotify, and we're fixing to put that everywhere. I didn't realize until I spoke with you about how many avails there are out there. So I'm going to be on more stations and places on the internet that you can find our podcast. But it's every Thursday, and I have a YouTube channel that we have our look back series. I've been doing television now for 40 years. So a lot of my old shows we're putting on YouTube. And as we do that, we get a lot of response, and I have fun looking at them. You know, you look at a show you did 25, 30 years ago, and it's pretty interesting. I've fished a lot with Dale Earnhardt and Larry Bird and Bo Jackson and some of the star athletes of the old days, and it's kind of cool to look back at those shows. And of course, I fish with a lot of other people as well, and making fun of myself, I kind of have fun doing that.
Well, it's nice to go back and look and see, some of your antics.
Yeah, well, we do that, and that's on our YouTube show. Then I have hankparker.com. You can check me out there. And then we've got HP Baits. I brought back an old classic spinnerbait that I won so much money on back when I toured. And now I brought a new bait out called the Paw Paw. And so all that's available at hpbaits.com. So you can check that out. So we got all kinds of stuff going on the new social scene.
I noticed in your spin bait, I think that's what you using someone else's or looked at it and you said, well, and just going by your video, you're talking about, well, I need to modify this. I can bring this a little lower here and it needs to be spin this. That wire needs to be a little stiffer. So when you look at new improved bait that comes out, do you really kind of analyze it? Do you take in?
Oh yeah. I modify. I got so many baits I modify. I get baits out of the package. I just went to work for a company named Arc, and almost everybody's jerk bait that I use, in order to catch fish with a suspend and jerk bait when the fish are lethargic, as I talked earlier about being in colder water. You jerk that bait down there and you stop it, and you want that bait to stay completely horizontal. You don't want it to nose up, or you don't want it to nose down. So I put that thing in a swimming pool and I'll work it and I watch it. And when I stop it, if it noses up, then I'll take a little piece of silver solder and go to that front split ring and just put a little piece of silver solder till I get that thing perfectly balanced where it'll sit there. Well, I signed on with this company, Arc, and they've got a jerk bait, and I took that thing out of the pack and I started throwing it in clear water up there in Lake Ontario, and I watched, and when I stopped it, it just stayed perfect.
Wow.
I thought, wow, because I would spend hours sometimes taking 3 or 4 jerk baits and modifying them, changing split rings, changing the weight of the hooks, just to get that bait to stay perfectly horizontal when I stop it and let it sit there. And that got a lot to do with fishing line. In the old days, we fished with monofilament. Well, monofilament floats, so that would make it nose up. So you really had to put a lot of weight in that front hook to keep that from happening with the buoyancy of that line. Now we have fluorocarbon line, and it's a neutral line. It doesn't sink or float. So when you fish a jerkbait on fluorocarbon line, you just let it sit there and it'll stay perfectly straight if it's made that way, if it's got the right weight balance before. The line doesn't have an effect on it. In the old days, the line did, so you'd have to offset that by using a bigger hook in the front.
Yeah,
Heavier.
I think when I was growing up, and they always told me, says, you don't want to use that big thick line there because the fish can see it, or I never could quite understand that. I said, fish must have pretty good eyesight.
Well, I tell you, they have radar, and people don't realize that. The lateral line. I've watched so many videos, and I've watched fish. One of the companies that I worked for years ago, they had all sorts of bass in crystal clear aquariums, and you would watch how those fish reacted to a bait. And if you pitch a bait in there on heavy line, you'd watch him before the bait ever got to him. You'd watch him. He'd start backing up. He felt that line. The bigger diameter displaced more water. It displaced, and he felt it. And he'd be looking like you would look if the wind started blowing. He feels that current from that displacement of that line diameter. So the heavier the line, the more water it displaced, the more that fish feels that, the more unnatural it is.
Wow. I'm learning so much.
It's just, again, back to the beauty of fishing. And I tried so hard when I started my television show not to overcomplicate things, but to make it more fun and more simple. I love tournament fishing. I made a living tournament fishing. What a wonderful opportunity that was for me, and how great that has been for my life. But that's not what fishing's about. Fishing's about camaraderie. Fishing's about being with a friend. Fishing is about two guys that have a passion for the outdoors, that experience and has a relationship together that magnifies. Like Jason Lemons and I went to Lake Murray fishing. We caught fish, but the fish were not the stars of the day. The camaraderie,
Right.
the companionship, all that is so important, and that's what makes fishing so special, whether it's with your little boy or your little girl or your wife or just a great friend. The camaraderie is the biggest part. And as I get older, I had all these desires to win all these tournaments and to make all this money and to have all these titles. Well, I've got a lot of titles. Money's all gone. Martha spent all that. But
You know she's listening, right?
oh yeah, I'm in trouble already. I'm sorry, baby. I mean, I've already spent it all. You haven't spent it. But I look at the trophies on the wall. They don't mean a lot. But I look at that trophy and I think who I fished with that day. I think about the circumstances. I think about the camaraderie. I think about Ray Scott, the founder of the sport. I think about Forrest Wood, the founder of Ranger Boat Company, that supported me, and Tom Bedell with Berkeley, who supported me, and the bond that we had, and we worked together to gain market share for their product, and the respect, and it's just so much more to it. So I try not to focus on the technical aspect so much as to keep it fun, because you can overwhelm. When we start talking about fish, always face the current, get the boat, cast into the wind, do all these different things, tune that jerk bait where it doesn't rise up, where it'll stay horizontal, pause it for 30 seconds and use fluorocarbon line, and have a medium heavy parabolic rod to load up to cast this particular lure, then have this rod for this and this rod for that and this rod. People could say, wait a minute, I'm not buying 15 fishing rods. I'm overwhelmed. I'm not going fishing. No. You don't have to have all of that. You do not have to have all of that. It just, if you're going to compete on a level against the world's greatest fishermen, you need to be able to have all that, know how to use it, know when to use it for your benefit, to be competitive.
It's like a guy with tools, working on air conditioning or a printer or whatever like that. You got to have the right tools.
That's right.
For every little detail like that.
That's right.
Do you find that, I know most people always thought men going fishing. What about women? Are you seeing more women coming into this?
What I love about this high school fishing, man, it is so exciting. These girls are rocking, man. They're these young girls. They girls listen better than boys. And if you give a seminar, if I go to a high school fishing uh, lake or where they're getting ready to have a tournament, and I do a little seminar, those girls take notes, man, and they'll go out there and they listen, and they'll kick those little boys' hind ends, man. They'll put it on them, and it's really hard on the male ego because I know this. Girls are a lot prettier than boys. Girls are a lot smarter than boys. And the male ego is pretty fragile, so they need to let us win at something. But these little girls, and it's exciting to see how many high school girls are involved in the sport. So it's recruiting more and more females to the sport of fishing, and it should have been that way all along. Fishing's awesome, and the water's level. They don't care. They don't care if you're fat, skinny, short, tall. They don't care if you're athletic, if you got big bite. They don't care. A fish could care less. The water is absolutely level.
Yep.
Male, female, it doesn't matter. So it's awesome.
As long as you have the right bait, right tools, that's the only thing to fish is worth.
Hey, you got it figured out. That's all it is.
Have you ever done fly fishing?
I did last week. I caught, I attempted to catch. I had tennis elbow from fishing in New York. I left New York, drove straight home, and got on an airplane and flew to Casper, Wyoming. And but I caught some Yellowstone cutthroat trout first time. But I fly fished for about an hour and a half, and a buddy of mine who was really good at it, my son Hank Jr. is really good at it, and I stink. So he laughed at me a lot. But I have fly fished. I've fly fished for tarpon. I've fly fished for bonefish, and for trout. And I'm not very good at it. I'll have to admit that.
Well,
but I enjoy it.
With fly fishing, you stand in the water.
You can be, yeah.
So, cause I went up towards Murphy, North Carolina, and there's doing some fly fishing out in there.
Where my son lives, and he fly fishes up there all the time. He lives in Andrews, which is right by Murphy.
Call from
Jason.
To accept, press 1. To send a voice.
Well, we got a phone call. That's interesting. My podcast, I don't take phone calls.
Hey, Jason. Can you hear us?
We've got Jason off.
Unable to network?
Well, we had Jason Lemons calling in. I'd like to talk to Jason. He is the high school coach of Union High Bass Fishing Team.
Well, let's see if we can't get him back here. Let's make sure my network's still going good there.
We lost him. Cyber world is not all it's cut out to be. It's not all perfected as of yet. So.
Let me see if I can call him.
We put him on the spot. I got some questions for him. He's pretty good with all that forward-facing sonar. Jason's got all the tools.
Jason, you there?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
we hear you, Jason. We hear you, buddy.
How's it going?
Wait, hey, yeah, I heard a cow after I moved. Were we out in the field?
No, that's a bird. I'm in the front yard.
That's a big bird.
Big bird. Had a deep voice.
Yeah.
When's the last time you went fishing, Jason?
A couple of weeks now. I've been working.
We
had a good day. Junior finally went back.
Wow, good deal.
So we caught about 20, 25 at Greenwood we were matching the hatch on the cicadas.
How about that?
Well, what you can do, Jason, is to tell Vicky that great news, you're going to be a professional fisherman. You're going to quit your job.
I don't know if that'll fly too well.
Why don't you try
Martha's about the only one that would work on.
Why don't you try it and let us know how it goes? I'd like to.
All right.
And video it.
Yeah. That would be real good. Video.
So just to add to what Hank was talking about earlier about the girls and the sport, I can add some to that because high school this year we picked up about four more females. We have one, Chelsea Rochester, that has been fishing for years with us, and we picked up I think 3 or 4 more females this year, and they're very competitive. We're very excited about it because when Jason Jr., myself, and Tanner Duncan went to Pickwick for the World Championships, 2 girls from Texas won the whole show and beat all those boys.
How
Wow.
about that?
So it is definitely becoming a female sport for sure. They are very aggressive, and they're very good at what they do. So, I tell the boys, don't look down because them girls will tear you up if you let them.
I love that. Man, that's nice.
Well, Jason, are you hoping to see, or you're seeing more at the high school getting involved with the fishing now?
Yeah, we went this year was our biggest team. We went from having about 16 kids, which a team is comprised of two anglers and 1 captain. And the captain's an adult that'll run the boat for the students. So we went from having 8 teams basically to we had 32 kids this year.
Wow.
Wow.
So we doubled in size this year, and we added a bank division as well because we have a big need for volunteers. Even our sponsors, which I want to thank Hank for being such a big sponsor of our team. We
Well, Jason, how do they get a hold of you to if they want to volunteer?
Yes.
Okay.
So hold on a second.
That's pretty cool if you wanted to volunteer to be a boat captain. If you got a boat, you want to take some high school fishing, I promise you it'll be rewarding to take those kids out. And Jason says you can give him a call and volunteer.
Yep, we have a website on Facebook. It's UCHS Bass Anglers, and they can go on there. We make announcements all the time. Follow our link on there. We have apparel. We have all kind of stuff. We announce a lot of the things that the kids are doing. But for some reason, I was getting feedback for a second. But what I was trying to say was we added a bank division this year for kids that didn't have the opportunity to fish out of a boat. So we took them and let them, be on the team. Where used to we had to turn them away because if they didn't have access to a boat, they were not able to fish. So this year we did this so we could have more kids' involvement, and we had a good turnout this year on it. There's a lot of growing pains with the team, but Wesley Pruitt's my assistant coach, and he is over that division. He done a very good job of putting things together. It was hard trying to get, little ponds and stuff for them to go to and get on fish. But that near the end of the year, it started getting to where they were starting to see more. But they jersey and everything just like us, and we did that if we had a boat division child that was not able to fish by rule, if one of the teams cannot go out, then the whole team has to sit out. So we used the bank division kids as our backups. So it was like a JV team going to varsity.
But Jason, with the kids, this is the high school students that's involved in the fishing. When they leave there, if they go to USC up in Union here, I know they got a team there also. Is there scholarships or things that maybe they are offering, or do they join that team? Or you have some of them joining that team?
Yes, that's the biggest thing that we're pushing really hard. Besides the academics is number one, but the fishing itself can lead them into opportunities at multiple colleges. There are multiple teams in the United States that are looking for anglers. It's a huge venue that's getting in where they're offering very good incentives on coming to go and fish for colleges. Cameron Kuhn is the head coach for the USC Bantams, and they have a team, but they have 4 teams right now at Pickwick in the national championship right now. So they are a very big contender. Our own hometown school is producing a lot of big name fishermen that you're going to probably see in the future. But they're competing right now on a national level.
That is great. That is great because I know that at the beginning it was kind of a struggle at the first in the beginning, getting the team together. I don't know if I heard Joe Woes there. It's just like they wouldn't, the school or something wasn't really interested in that particular time. It seemed like you kind of woke them up a little bit that there is interest in this. Now, Hank,
Yes.
what
That's kind
what is
of
one?
like our. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to ask Hank, what is one of the funniest things that has ever happened to you during your fishing career? Okay.
Well, I've had quite a few funny things, and funnier to other people than myself. But Franco Hill from Union, South Carolina, that's why I'm here. I leased his land to deer hunt on, and Franco became good friends with me. And I lived up on Lake Norman. And Fenwick Rod Company came out with a new, very expensive rod called an Airman Veil. And Abu Garcia made a Hank Parker signature casting reel. So the stripers were biting on Lake Norman, and I called Franco to come up and fish with me. He loved it, spend the night. So when he came, I presented him with a Hank Parker signature reel on an Airman Veil fishing rod. I put some 10-pound test trilene line on it and put him a bucktail on there, which is what we were catching the stripers with. And I gave that to Franco, and he said, Hanky. He never called me Hank. It was always Hanky. So Franco said, Hanky, is this going to be my rod to keep? I said, yes, sir, Franco. That's your rod to keep. He said, my very own rod? I said, Franco, that's your very own rod. He said, well, that's the nicest thing anybody's ever done for me, Hanky. I said, well, enjoy it, Franco. It's quite the rod and reel. So the next day we're out there fishing, and we're doing really good. And we're chasing the birds. They're diving on the water, seagulls, and they're showing us where the fish are. So I pride myself on being able to read those birds pretty well and be the first boat to the fish, because whoever gets there first is going to catch the fish. So every time I would see those birds starting to get in formation, I'd kind of anticipate where they're going. So I jerk my troll motor up, and I want to be the first guy to get to the place. And Franco makes one of these 100-yard casts. So I had a little conference with Franco. I said, Frank, when you see Hanky put his hands on the troll motor, it's time for Frankie to wind his little mess in and set down. We're going for a boat ride. Don't be making one of them 100-foot casts. So about 3 times or 4 times after that, I looked in the birds and I jerked the troll motor up. He's in the process of making one of them 100-yard casts. And so he just took rod and reel and all this, threw it in the water. We in 100 foot of water. So it ain't no getting it back, and we're talking $400. And it is no getting it back. It's gone. So I go on and just ignore the fact that he just threw the rod and reel in the water. So we get over to the spot, and I said, Franco, man, why'd you throw your rod and reel in the water? He said, well, I didn't want to hold you up, boss man. I said, well, that just makes me sick. You threw your rod and reel in the water. He said, oh, that wasn't mine, Hanky. Mine's in the car.
Yours?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. He threw my rod and reel in the water.
Yes. Yes, Jason.
I got one of Hank's friends that wants to say hello to him right here.
All right, go ahead.
I'm gonna hand it over to somebody.
Hey Hank, how's it going?
Is this little Jason?
Jason Jr.
Jason Jr. gone back fishing, went to Greenville. Well, I'm glad you got them girls off your mind for 1 week and got them pickup trucks off your mind for 1 week and got back on the water.
Yeah, it's warming back up. It's about that time.
I mean, I'm glad to hear it, man. You need to get back out there. Fishing's good. You don't need to give it up.
Take your girlfriend with you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you take.
I ain't got no girlfriend.
Oh, man, you done busted up. How many girlfriends you had in the last year or two?
How many?
How many have you had? Yeah.
Just one.
Oh, man.
Kind of like that country song that the guy was singing, you know, where his wife's going to leave him if he's out in the boat one more time. And he
Brad Paisley, I'm going to miss her.
Yeah, I'm going to miss her.
One more time. Oh, that's a good one. I played rhythm guitar on that video, Brad Paisley. That was the #1 country music video of all time for a while. I don't know where it is now, but
it's still popular.
Yeah, I played rhythm guitar on that. We were at Lake Caroline down in Alabama on the dock playing the guitar with Brad Paisley on I'm Gonna Miss Her.
Well, real quick, we're getting close to the end.
All right.
You talk a little bit about Huckleberry. You said that.
That was the whole point. when Jason told me about the kids fishing off the bank, I want every kid to have the opportunity to go out and go fishing. And they're no longer turning these kids away. They're providing a method for them to fish and be a part of the program and be a part of the team. Huckleberry Apparel, I looked for 3 years trying to find a company that would be willing to give up enough money if these kids sell a t-shirt, if they sell a hat. With Huckleberry, 30% of all the profit go to the kids. So they sell a hat, they get $10. They sell a t-shirt, they get $15. They sell a hoodie, they get $20. They sell a pair of Hank Parker signature sunglasses, they get $30. So it's enough money that they can support the school and have enough money to buy fuel for the boaters and do some exciting things, and it's going to expand the program. Every school that I have gone to, the number one need is sponsorship. Well, sponsorship is not going to happen. You're not going to get Lou's and Ranger Boats and Mercury Outboards and Johnny Morris being able to give money to all these 6,000 schools out there. Right. So now we have got an adequate amount of money that they can earn by selling Huckleberry Apparel. So it's a very exciting program. We just kicked it off at the Bassmaster Classic just a few months ago, and it's going really, really well. And we're hoping to help these kids better themselves, teach them a work ethic too. If they want it, it's out there for them. All they got to do is go sell some hats and t-shirts and some hoodies and sunglasses, and they can raise adequate money for the team to go fishing.
And is this a link to your on your website?
You can go to huckleberryapparel.com and click on high school fishing, and all the information is there.
Oh, okay. We'll have to put a link in there. People find it real quick.
That'd be great.
People just like to click.
That's right. Click on Huckleberry Apparel.
Well, Jason, we appreciate you and Jason Jr. calling in. We're getting ready to wrap it up here, and so thank y'all for calling.
Thank you, and y'all have a good evening.
Okay, you too. Bye.
See you guys.
Yep.
And gone.
Yep, some good boys right there. I'm gonna tell you.
It is. It's Jason Jr. was little like that. I must have fascinated him something because he just wanted to see me.
I like that. He likes it.
Yeah.
He likes you. That's good.
So he's growing up to be a fine young man.
He's a great fisherman. I did a television show with him, and he caught on quick. He caught him.
Yeah. I knew you. He did that.
He did a good
Thrilled him to death.
Yeah.
So that's good memories.
Good boy. Good.
Well, Hank, I really appreciate you coming on the show and enlightening me. I'll tell you what, I learned a lot about fishing that I didn't know. I didn't know nothing about fishing.
Well, it's all good. You can check with Little Jason. He can show you how to do it.
Exactly. I go with Big Jason, Little Jason fishing one day, but they probably throw me overboard because
they may.
Yeah, I might talk too much or something in there on it.
I doubt it.
But thank you for coming. And folks, next Monday we're going to have Melanie Lawson on the show. She's going to be talking about all the things she does as clerk of court. You wouldn't believe what the clerk of court person does. So she's going to enlighten you on that, how long she's been there before she become clerk of court. And I was really blown away of all the things she does. So stay tuned for next Monday for Melanie Lawson. And we got other guests coming up during the month of June and July. So stay tuned to see who they are. And don't forget to go to huckleberries.com and
Huckleberry Apparel. Huckleberry Apparel.
Huckleberry Apparel. And let's help these kids out. Well, I'm Jerry McKee, and thank you for watching Prime Time.